other things, but that's what they're known for. In that day and age, the city of Athens was considered and known to be the philosophical, cultural center of the world. This was where the heavy hitters, the deep thinkers, the great philosophers of the day lived. Athens was known as a philosophical center, the cultural, artsy place to be. So, as Paul is there, he runs into two of the main philosophical schools there, two of the big ones, the Epicureans and the Stoics. We'll talk about that here in a second. But I want you to understand, I want you to realize the atmosphere. It was a very high society. It was a very uppity, it was a very pinky out as you drink your tea kind of society. Okay? They were above it all. They were the thinkers. They were the logics. They were the people who could outthink you, and they were philosophically debating and going down rabbit trails and whatever else, constantly patting themselves on the back of how deep and philosophical they really were. And then there's Paul. Okay? So Paul will do what he normally does. He goes to the synagogue first, and in the synagogue, some of them were accepting him, a lot of them were not. He starts talking to the Greeks. He's in Athens. He's going to talk to the Greeks. So he starts talking to the other people, and as he's doing that in the marketplace, day by day, he runs into these different philosophical schools, and they start debating, and so they finally say, oh my gosh, this is great. What's going on? I'll read again what they said. Some of them said this is about, what is he trying to say? Others said he seems to be advocating foreign gods. They said it's because Paul was preaching the good news about Jesus and the resurrection. So because of that, verse 19, they took him and brought him to the meeting place at the Areopagus, where they said to him, may we know what this new teaching is that you are presenting. You're bringing some strange ideas to our ears, and we want to know what they mean. Luke puts a parenthetical note. All the Athenians and the foreigners who lived there spent their time doing nothing but talking about and listening to the latest ideas. Again, you even have a little note in there from Luke as he's writing it to Theophilus saying, just so you remember, these were the great thinkers who did nothing. Okay? They were known as great philosophers, but there was a lot of manual labor that went on around it, because they were above all that. They were the thinkers. And he had brought some strange ideas they never heard of before. Verse 22. Paul then stood at the meeting of the Areopagus and said, men of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious people, for as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with the inscription to an unknown God. Now what you worship as something unknown, I am now going to proclaim to you. Let me tell you about this unknown God. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples built by hands. He is not served by human hands as if he needed anything, because he himself gives all men life and breath and everything else. From one man he made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he determined the time set for them in the exact places where they would live. God did this so that men would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, although he is not far from any of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. Now because we are God's offspring, we should not think that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, an image made by man's design and skill. No, in the past, God overlooked such ignorance, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent. He set a day when he will judge the world, and justice by the man he has appointed. He's given proof of this to all men by raising this man from the dead. Now, when he talked to, or when they heard about the resurrection of the dead, some of them sneered, and others said, we want to hear more about this. We want to hear about this subject again. At that, Paul left the council. A few men became followers of Paul and believed. Among them were Dionysius, a member of the Areopagus, and also a woman named Damaris, and a number of other prominent people. The Epicureans and the Stoics. The Epicureans were a philosophical thought that pleasure ruled. In fact, as I was researching this, the phrase eat, drink, and be merry. You ever heard that? Can be traced back to the Epicurean philosophical thought. Live in the moment. That's all that matters. It's all about now. You follow the pleasure. They also believe that matter is eternal. In other words, there is no creator because everything that is has always been and will always be. Maybe not in the same form as it was, but all matter is eternal. Therefore, there is nothing to be created, and there's no reason for a creator because it's always been here. They believed they believed and denied the immortality of the soul, and they denied that the gods exercised providential involvement over human affairs. In other words, if there are gods out there, they were Greeks. If there are gods out there, they're not wasting their time on everyday mundane affairs that you and I would be involved in. And once you die, that's it. Some of the Epicureans believe in a transmigration of the soul, in other words, being absorbed back into the universe. But for the most part, whenever you're dead, you're dead. That's all there is. You eat, drink, and be merry now, because after that, it's ixnay on funny. Okay? Now, the Stoics were just the opposite. The Stoics believed that the thing you should do is you should deny all pleasure and all fun in life. You should be stoic. Thus they called them Stoics. Isn't that crazy how that works? Yeah, they said, you gotta control yourself. Self-discipline was the biggest thing. They believed in the Greek god system. They believed in Zeus and all those mythological gods that we now study. They believed that all things were governed by the fates. Remember the fates in the Greek mythology? Even Zeus must bow to the fates. There's nothing pre-planned. There's nothing predestined. It's up for grabs, and it's whatever the fates decide. It's all coincidental. They believed self-denial was the biggest thing. Passions and affections were to be suppressed and restrained. They practiced, and they talked of practicing of being apathetic and being indifferent to all things. Is that great or what? The problem with the world today is that people don't care and they don't know. Of course, the other problem is that we're too apathetic and too ignorant. You can work on that one, you'll get it later. Yeah. They taught to be indifferent and to be apathetic. Again, because self-denial was the biggest thing. And they denied at every level the immortality of the soul. And in walks Paul. And as he's preaching in the marketplace, they begin to debate him a little bit, and he holds his own, and they're going, you know what? This guy has some stuff going on. We've never heard this stuff. Would you please come to Mars Hill, to the Areopagus, where the greatest of the great minds meet and think and come up with these incredible thoughts, and would you teach us these strange things you're teaching about? And Paul says, absolutely. He walks into a group of people, have them believe that you must be apathetic to all things, have them believe that if you're not having a good time, you're wasting your moments. They all believed and they all rejected that the soul was immortal. They rejected the creator or anything like that. Some believed that you were up in coincidence of life. Others believed there was nothing like that. All these different beliefs walked in, and Paul comes in and he says, how you doing? It's great to see you. Golly, it's great to be here. As I walk around the city, and this is great, as I walk around the city, and man, I got to tell you guys, you are some of the most religious people I've ever seen. How do you do it? Golly, you're so religious. I mean, you've got idols for everything. And historical accounts identify that this city was filled with idols to every possible god they had ever heard of, because they didn't want to make any god possibly upset. To the point that, as Paul in those weeks as he's there, before he is brought up to the Areopagus, he walks along and he actually sees an idol. Somebody with these great philosophical thoughts said, you know what? What if there's a God out there that we haven't heard about that gets upset because we're not honoring him as well? So we need to make an idol to the unknown God because we don't know everything. Golly, that's really smart. So here's the idol to the unknown God. And Paul walks in and he says, you guys are so religious. Man, you guys are deep thinkers. Man, I just stand in awe of your smarts. Golly. By the way, I'm the guy that represents the God you don't know about. Now, 101 of public speaking. Know your audience.